Welcome back to our channel, your ultimate destination for the most scintillating updates and profound deep dives into the glamorous, treacherous world of daytime television. Today is a truly spectacular day to unpack a labyrinth of deceit that is actively rewriting the history of our favorite Los Angeles dynasties. Let us step directly into the shadows of this unprecedented corporate betrayal. The illusion of sanctuary is a dangerous comfort in the cutthroat world of high fashion, a fragile glass house built on the precipice of a dangerous canyon. For Hope Logan Spencer, that sanctuary was supposed to be the newly minted, wildly successful Logan fashion brand. After enduring weeks of agonizing marginalization at Forster Creations, where her beloved hope for the future line was unceremoniously halted by an increasingly dictatorial Steffy Forster Finnegan, Hope believed she had finally found her escape route. The Logan brand, spearheaded by the formidable alliance of Katie Logan and Bill Spencer, represented more than just a rival company. It was a beacon of familial loyalty, a promise of creative freedom, and a definitive counterstrike to the suffocating environment Steffy had cultivated. Hope had meticulously prepared herself for this transition, buoyed by the strategic encouragement of her husband, Liam Spencer, who saw the Logan brand as the perfect vessel for Hope's undeniable talent. But in a world governed by power, money, and ancient vendettas, sanctuaries are often just beautifully disguised traps waiting to be sprung. The foundation of this impending tragedy lies in the explosive success of the Logan brand's debut collection, a triumph that was inextricably linked to a massive, looming vulnerability. The glittering billboards broadcasting Katie and Bill's success across the globe were built on a precarious secret: the unauthorized use of Eric Forster's visionary designs. While Katie felt justified, believing Eric owed her for abandoning their initial partnership, the legal reality was a ticking time bomb. Eric's designs were the intellectual property of Forster Creations, and the financial liability of this theft was astronomical. A multi-million-dollar lawsuit hovered over the Logan brand like a dark, suffocating storm cloud, a vulnerability that did not go unnoticed by the sharp, predatory instincts of Steffy Forster. Steffy, sitting securely on her throne as co-CEO, recognized that she held the ultimate leverage, a weapon powerful enough to not only crush the Logan brand, but to fundamentally manipulate the chessboard of Los Angeles fashion to her absolute advantage. Steffy's Machiavellian brilliance culminated in a clandestine, high-stakes meeting with Bill Spencer, a collision of two ruthless titans operating in the shadows. Away from the prying eyes of the press and the emotional entanglements of their respective families, Steffy laid her cards on the table with chilling precision. She did not approach Bill with the fiery indignation of a wronged executive. Rather, she approached him with the cold, calculating demeanor of a mob boss offering a deal that could not be refused. The atmosphere in the room was thick with unspoken threats and corporate warfare. Steffy knew exactly how to appeal to Bill's baseline instincts, bypassing any emotional pleas and speaking directly to his wallet. She understood that Bill Spencer, despite his proclamations of family loyalty, was a creature of economics first and foremost. The terms of Steffy's proposition were as simple as they were devastatingly effective. Steffy promised to unilaterally bury the impending lawsuit, to look the other way regarding the stolen Eric Forster designs, and to allow the Logan brand to reap its ill-gotten millions without any legal consequence. But this unprecedented leniency came with a singular, non-negotiable price. Bill Spencer had to categorically refuse to hire Hope Logan. He had to shut the door of the Logan sanctuary firmly and permanently in Hope's face, leaving her stranded in the corporate wilderness without a lifeline. Steffy's objective was clear. She wanted to completely isolate her greatest rival, stripping Hope of any financial backing or professional platform that could challenge Forster Creations. For Bill Spencer, a man who has built his global empire on the bedrock of ruthless pragmatism and economic supremacy, the decision was a masterclass in cold-blooded calculus. Bill has always fancied himself a fierce protector of his family, a patriarch who fiercely defends his own against outside threats. Yet, When faced with the binary choice between preserving a multi-million-dollar enterprise and extending a lifeline to his daughter-in-law, the businessman entirely eclipsed the family man. The potential fallout of a Forrester lawsuit would not merely be a financial hit. It would be a catastrophic blow to the Logan brand's reputation, potentially bankrupting the venture before it truly took flight and humiliating Katie in the process. Bill weighed Hope's emotional salvation against the bottom line of his ledger, and the ledger decisively won. He chose the preservation of capital over the preservation of family, agreeing to Steffy's devilish pact with a stoic nod that sealed Hope's fate. In that silent, shadowy agreement, Bill Spencer traded Hope's future for absolute corporate immunity. The execution of this profound betrayal was a masterstroke of cruelty, delivered in the sterile, opulent confines of Bill's executive office. When Hope arrived to formally discuss her transition to the Logan brand, her eyes were alight with the desperate optimism of a woman who believed she was finally breaking free from her chains. She presented her vision, her passion, and her unwavering loyalty to the Logan name, fully expecting to be welcomed with open arms by the man who had always championed her husband. Instead, she was met with an impenetrable wall of corporate jargon and hollow excuses. Bill, wearing his most unreadable, hardened poker face, delivered the crushing blow without a flinch. He cited fabricated budget constraints, shifting creative directions, and the sudden need to stabilize the brand before bringing on a marquee name. Every word out of his mouth was a meticulously crafted lie, a smokescreen designed to hide the blood on his hands. He rejected her cleanly, efficiently, and without a shred of visible remorse, leaving Hope utterly bewildered and completely untethered from her dreams. The immediate aftermath of the rejection was a suffocating fog of confusion and despair for Hope. Nothing about Bill's rationale made any logical sense to her. The Logan brand was flush with cash from their global debut. They desperately needed a lead designer to replace Eric, and Hope was the most logical, lucrative choice in the entire fashion industry. Liam, who had enthusiastically orchestrated the strategy, was equally paralyzed by his father's incomprehensible pivot. Hope spent agonizing hours torturing herself, replaying the meeting in her mind, searching for the hidden flaw in her presentation, the misstep that had cost her her freedom. She internalized the rejection, allowing the toxic seeds of self-doubt to take root in her already fragile psyche. She believed, in those agonizing moments, that she was simply not good enough, that even her own extended family viewed her as a liability rather than an asset. The true horror of her situation, however, was still lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal its ugly, devastating face. The universe often has a cruel sense of humor, choosing the most mundane, unexpected moments to completely shatter our realities. For Hope, the revelation of the truth did not come through a dramatic confrontation or a grand, tearful confession, but through the careless crack of a slightly ajar door. While visiting the Spencer Publications offices, seeking a moment of clarity or perhaps a final, desperate plea with Bill, Hope found herself standing in the dimly lit corridor outside his private executive suite. It was there, frozen in the heavy silence of the hallway, that she overheard a phone call that would violently alter the trajectory of her life forever. Through the heavy oak door, Bill's voice drifted out, low, conspiratorial, and laced with an unmistakable edge of defensive justification. He was speaking to Steffy Forrester. The words hit Hope like physical blows, each syllable a jagged dagger plunging deeper into her chest. Hope stood completely paralyzed, her breath catching painfully in her throat as she listened to the horrifying details of the transaction being discussed. She heard Bill explicitly confirm that the deed was done, that he had officially rejected her, and that the door to the Logan brand was permanently locked. She heard the explicit mention of a lawsuit, the stolen Eric Forrester designs, and the undeniable confirmation of the quid pro quo arrangement. The sheer, transactional nature of the conversation was what truly broke her spirit. She was not a human being to them. She was merely a bargaining chip, a pawn sacrificed on the altar of corporate greed to protect Katie's bottom line. The realization that Steffy had reached across enemy lines to orchestrate her ruin, and that Bill had willingly acted as the executioner, created a sensory overload of pure, unadulterated trauma. The walls of the corridor seemed to close in on her rapidly, the air growing thick and unbreathable as the magnitude of the betrayal washed over her in suffocating waves. The psychological collapse that followed this discovery was absolute, terrifying, and profoundly silent. Hope did not storm into the office. She did not scream, throw accusations, or demand answers. Instead, she backed away slowly, her eyes wide with a hollow, haunted emptiness, before fleeing the building like a ghost escaping a graveyard. When she finally reached the isolated sanctuary of her car, the emotional dam broke entirely. The tears that fell were not just tears of sorrow or disappointment. They were tears of profound, agonizing humiliation and total defeat. She had been played for an absolute fool. She had allowed herself to believe in the sanctity of family and the promise of loyalty, only to discover that every relationship she relied upon had a hidden price tag. Steffy had successfully stripped her of her career, her confidence, and her escape route, but Bill had stripped her of her fundamental trust in the people who were supposed to protect her. She was entirely cornered, trapped in a living nightmare where her rivals were omnipotent and her allies were treacherous mercenaries. This catastrophic revelation acts as the ultimate catalyst for an unprecedented, irreparable rift between the Spencer and Logan dynasties. The powerful alliance that had once stood as a formidable bulwark against the Forrester Empire is now shattered beyond any hope of repair. When the truth of Bill's actions inevitably permeates the family network, the fallout will be truly apocalyptic. Bill's cold decision to sacrifice a Logan to protect another Logan is a twisted, indefensible logic that will tear the family fabric to shreds. He has effectively declared to the world that his loyalty is highly conditional, governed exclusively by financial viability rather than moral obligation or familial love. This betrayal poisons the well permanently, casting a dark, suspicious shadow over every interaction, every business deal, and every shared holiday. The Spencer-Logan connection, once defined by passionate romances and fierce loyalties, is now defined by a cold, calculating act of treason that can never be undone or forgiven. Caught squarely in the chaotic epicenter of this detonating bomb is Liam Spencer, a man whose entire existence is defined by his desperate, ongoing attempts to balance his deep love for Hope with his inherent loyalty to his father. Liam's position is now utterly untenable and profoundly tragic. He had passionately championed the move to the Logan brand, assuring Hope that his father would welcome her with open arms and protect her from Steffy's wrath. To discover that his own father actively colluded with his ex-wife to destroy his current wife's career is a mind-bending betrayal that completely shatters Liam's worldview. He is violently forced to confront the chilling reality of who Bill Spencer truly is, a ruthless man devoid of the familial sentimentality that Liam holds so dear. Liam must now choose between the father who raised him and the wife who has been completely broken by that father's actions. The internal conflict will tear Liam apart, potentially driving a massive wedge between him and Hope as she struggles to look at any Spencer without seeing the face of her betrayer. But the most terrifying consequence of Bill's treachery is the immediate awakening of Brooke Logan's maternal fury. Brooke has always been a fierce, unapologetic defender of her children, a protective lioness who will scorch the earth to protect her cubs from harm. When Brooke learns of the unholy, secret alliance between Steffy and Bill, her reaction will not be one of mere disappointment or sadness. It will be a terrifying declaration of total, uncompromising war. Brooke had already been radicalized by Steffy's dismissive treatment of Hope, setting her sights on usurping the co-CEO chair. But this new revelation shifts the paradigm entirely. Steffy is no longer just a corporate rival. She is a malicious architect of pain. And Bill Spencer, a man Brooke has loved, fought with, and defended for decades, is now public enemy number one. The betrayal cuts Brooke to her very core, igniting a righteous, burning vengeance that promises to consume everything in its path. Brooke's solemn vow to make Bill pay dearly for his cowardice will fundamentally reshape the landscape of Los Angeles. She will not be satisfied with hollow apologies or financial restitution. Brooke will seek to dismantle Bill's life with the exact same ruthless efficiency he used to dismantle Hope's career. She knows all of Bill's darkest secrets, his hidden vulnerabilities, and his emotional pressure points. The impending war between Brooke and Bill will be deeply personal, incredibly vicious, and entirely unconstrained by the rules of polite society. Brooke will weaponize every single resource at her disposal, potentially turning Katie against Bill or exposing the fraudulent foundation of the Logan brand's success to the authorities, caring absolutely nothing for the collateral damage as long as Bill suffers immensely. Her maternal instinct has mutated into a singular, obsessive drive for absolute retribution, and heaven help anyone who attempts to stand between a vengeful Brooke Logan and her chosen target. Amidst the smoking wreckage of the Spencer and Logan families, Steffy Forrester sits triumphant upon her executive throne, a dark queen surveying a thoroughly conquered kingdom. Her victory is absolute, a flawless, masterful execution of psychological and economic warfare. By blackmailing Bill, Steffy accomplished what years of direct confrontation could never achieve. She completely and utterly isolated her greatest rival. Hope is now totally devoid of financial backing, corporate support, and family unity. Steffy didn't just defeat Hope. She engineered a brilliant scenario where Hope's own family delivered the fatal blow on her behalf. This masterstroke solidifies Steffy's position as the undisputed, untouchable ruler of Forrester Creations. She has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that she possesses not only the creative vision to lead the company, but the ruthless, predatory cunning required to annihilate any opposition before it even has the chance to mobilize against her. Steffy's unassailable triumph is a chilling testament to her evolution as a character. She has entirely shed the remnants of her youthful impulsivity and fully embraced the calculating, iron-fisted legacy of her namesake, Stephanie Forrester. As she watches the Logan and Spencer families tear each other apart from the luxurious comfort of her executive suite, Steffy revels in the profound knowledge that she orchestrated the entire symphony of destruction without leaving a single fingerprint on the weapon. She has secured the future of Eric's couture line, neutralized the immense threat of the Logan brand's expansion, and completely broken the spirit of Hope Logan, all with a single, perfectly timed, devastating threat. It is a terrifying display of absolute power, setting a new, brutal standard for corporate warfare in Los Angeles, and leaving the audience breathless as we wait to see if anyone can possibly rise from the ashes to challenge her reign. In the sun-drenched, opulent world of the bold and the beautiful, where wealth and privilege usually act as impenetrable shields against the harsh realities of life, a profoundly disturbing narrative is unfolding behind closed doors. The intersection of profound grief and paralyzing fear has created a toxic crucible, forging an unholy alliance that will forever alter the landscape of several intertwined lives. At the dead center of this impending emotional apocalypse are two women, separated by class and circumstance, yet inextricably bound by a shared, suffocating desperation: Daphne Rose Walton and Melissa Dillon. What is transpiring between them is not merely a dramatic plot twist. It is a harrowing exploration of the commodification of the human body, the corrosive nature of absolute wealth, and the terrifying lengths to which a broken spirit will go to mend itself. To truly understand the gravity of the Faustian bargain that has just been struck, one must first delve into the agonizing psychological descent of Daphne Rose Walton. For months, audiences have watched as Daphne's desperate yearning for a child has slowly metastasized from a beautiful dream into a waking nightmare. The clinical sterility of doctors' offices, the endless cycle of hope followed by the crushing devastation of negative pregnancy tests, and the visceral, silent agony of severe infertility have systematically eroded her sanity. Daphne is a woman who has always been defined by her grace, her intelligence, and her unwavering partnership with Carter Walton. Yet, the inability to conceive has stripped her of her fundamental sense of self. It is a unique, invisible grief that isolates the sufferer, building a wall of sorrow that even the most loving partner cannot scale. This prolonged trauma has fundamentally fractured Daphne's moral compass, transforming her from a grieving would-be mother into a woman willing to cross any ethical boundary to secure the family she believes she is owed by the universe. Parallel to Daphne's quiet, internal destruction is the loud, terrifying external nightmare consuming Melissa Dillon. Melissa's life has been a relentless cascade of instability, marked by the paralyzing fear of homelessness, the chaotic romantic entanglements with Will Spencer and R.J. Forrester, and the constant struggle to maintain her fragile footing at Forrester Creations. But nothing could have prepared her for the sheer, unadulterated terror that arrived on Monday, May 4th. The mysterious voice on the other end of the phone, previously a nebulous threat, was finally given a face and an identity. The revelation that her stalker is a terrifying figure from her past, someone with unfinished business, shattered whatever fragile sense of safety Melissa had managed to construct. She is a woman cornered, hunted by a predator she cannot outrun, and acutely aware that she possesses neither the financial resources nor the social power to protect herself. The beach house, once a sanctuary, has become a gilded cage where every shadow holds a threat and every ringing phone is a harbinger of doom. It is in this crucible of mutual, suffocating desperation that these two women collide, setting the stage for a Wednesday encounter that will go down in the annals of daytime television history as one of the most chilling negotiations ever broadcast. Daphne, acutely aware of Melissa's terrifying predicament, approaches the younger woman not with the warmth of a concerned friend, but with the calculated precision of an apex predator who has spotted wounded prey. The atmosphere in the room is heavy, thick with unspoken ultimatums and the palpable scent of fear. Daphne does not merely offer a lifeline. She presents a meticulously constructed, inescapable trap disguised as salvation. She looks into the terrified eyes of Melissa Dillon and offers her the one thing she desperately craves: absolute, impenetrable safety. Daphne's proposition is a masterclass in manipulation, wielding the immense power and wealth of the Walton family like a velvet-wrapped hammer. She promises to deploy every resource at her disposal: private security, legal intimidation, and the sheer, crushing weight of high society influence to neutralize Melissa's stalker permanently. She paints a picture of a life completely insulated from fear, a life of guaranteed luxury, financial stability, and physical protection. For a woman who has spent her life running, who has felt the cold breath of danger on her neck and the looming threat of living in her car, this offer is nothing short of miraculous. It is the definitive end to her suffering, a golden ticket out of the hell's cape her life has become. But in the world of Los Angeles elites, salvation is never free, and the price Daphne exacts is fundamentally soul-crushing. The condition attached to this promise of salvation is delivered with a chilling clinical detachment. In exchange for her life, her safety, and her future, Melissa must surrender her biology. Daphne demands that Melissa serve as a surrogate for her and Carter, carrying their biological child. This is not presented as a heartfelt plea for assistance, nor is it framed as a beautiful act of altruism between friends. It is a cold, hard, non-negotiable transaction. It is a quid pro quo deal born of utter desperation, where protection is bartered for a womb. Daphne, blinded by her own agonizing grief, fails to see the grotesque nature of her demand, viewing Melissa not as a human being in distress, but as a vessel, a biological solution to a deeply personal tragedy. For Melissa, the realization of what is being asked of her triggers a profound internal collapse. As Daphne's words hang in the air, Melissa is forced to confront the horrifying reality that she is trading one form of absolute captivity for another. The stalker wanted to destroy her life. Daphne wants to consume her body. The psychological weight of this realization is staggering. Melissa feels an immediate, visceral sense of dehumanization. She is no longer a young woman with dreams, agency, and a right to bodily autonomy. She has been reduced to a mere commodity, a biological incubator purchased with the currency of protection. The feeling of being turned into a biological bargaining chip is a trauma that cuts deeper than the fear of her stalker, striking at the very core of her identity and self-worth. Yet, the true horror of this storyline lies in the illusion of choice. Melissa Dillon is a woman standing on the edge of a precipice, staring down into the abyss of her stalker's wrath. Daphne has opened a single door behind her. It is a door that leads to a golden cage, to 9 months of physical and emotional servitude, and to a lifetime of psychological scarring. But it is the only door available. Melissa cannot say no. To refuse is to invite destruction at the hands of a ghost from her past. The suffocating reality of her situation forces her to accept the unrefusable offer, nodding her head in a silent, devastating surrender. She steps through the door, sealing her fate and stepping into a vortex of chaos from which there is absolutely no escape. The tragic irony of this entire, macabre arrangement is amplified exponentially by the blissful, almost criminal ignorance of Carter Walton. Carter, a man who has built his entire reputation on being the unyielding moral and legal compass of Forrester Creations, is currently spending his days delivering prophetic warnings to Ridge and Steffy about the ethical and corporate consequences of their actions. He is a man who prides himself on seeing the truth, on navigating the complexities of right and wrong with unwavering clarity. Yet, within the walls of his own home, he is completely blind to the profound moral bankruptcy occurring right under his nose. He is entirely unaware of the coercion, the blackmail, and the sheer desperation that birthed this surrogacy arrangement. Carter is operating under a wholly fabricated narrative, meticulously constructed by Daphne to shield him from the ugly truth. He looks at Melissa Dillon and sees an angel of mercy, a selfless, altruistic young woman who has volunteered out of the goodness of her heart to give him and Daphne the family they have wept for. The dramatic irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. Every time Carter expresses his profound, tearful gratitude to Melissa, every time he gently touches her shoulder and thanks her for her incredible sacrifice, he is unwittingly twisting the knife deeper into her psychological wounds. His genuine, heartfelt appreciation stands in sickening contrast to the silent, agonizing screams echoing inside Melissa's mind. She is forced to smile, to accept his praise, and to play the role of the willing savior while feeling entirely like a hostage. This dynamic gives birth to a toxic, deeply insidious secret bond between Daphne and Melissa. They are no longer simply two women in Los Angeles. They are co-conspirators in a dark, unforgivable deception. They are bound together by a shared guilt that will inevitably poison every interaction they have. Daphne must constantly look at Melissa and see the living embodiment of her own moral failure, a constant reminder of the horrific lengths she went to in order to become a mother. Melissa must look at Daphne and see her jailer, the woman who bought her body and silenced her agency. It is a relationship built on a foundation of coercion